Oh, well, there we are. Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Friday, April the 24th, 2020, 11:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm coming at you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. And today we're talking some Back to the Future. Back to the Future, of course, the iconic Robert Zemeckis film from 1985, produced by Steven Spielberg. Dean Cundey, the director of photography. Dean Cundey, of course, was the director of photography, was the DP on the shoot. And I saw Back to the Future in 1985 at the movie theater. At the drive-in, excuse me, not the movie theater, the drive-in. And I remember it very well. And of course, to this day, it is one of the most iconic movies of all time. And it spawned two sequels, of course, Back to the Future 2 in 1989, and then Back to the Future 3, something like 6 months later, or something like that, something crazy like that, in 1990. Now, I think the general consensus here is that Back to the Future, the first one, is... that is the quintessential Back to the Future movie. It's got everything. It is the best in the trilogy. Probably followed in order. So you would probably go 1, 2, and then 3. I think. And again, I'm not saying that there aren't people in the chat room or who are watching after the fact, after the live show's done, that may feel differently. Maybe Back to the Future 3 is your favorite for a variety of reasons. But I think the general consensus is that Back to the Future 1 is the best, followed by Back to the Future 2, and then 3. 3 is sort of that odd duckling a little bit because they go back 100 years to 1885, and it's got a bit of a different vibe to it. It's not, it is connected to the fam still, and you're going back and meeting their greats, but or their greats, I should say, maybe great, not great, it's not that long ago. But nonetheless, it's sort of that odd kind of feeling one that's out there, whereas the first two are very connected to the same story, if you know what I mean, right? 1985, 1955, you go back to the undersea, the under the sea enchantment dance, whatever the hell it was, you know what I mean? And you go back and then whole thing. Of course, Crispin Glover is not in Back to the Future Part 2. That's a whole other thing we could talk about. But there's something specific I wanted to talk about today, and it stems from an article that I saw in The Hollywood Reporter. And I think this is sort of interesting because I have to admit that I have thought about it before. I think we all have. I think us Back to the Future fans have thought about this before, but it's never really dawned on me that that some people, I should say, consider it a plot hole. Now, what is a plot hole? Well, a plot hole is something that is... off the top of my head, because there are some people that, especially nowadays, where things are just thrown around interchangeably, there are some people that like to throw around a plot hole when they just don't understand something. And it's like, well, no, just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it's a plot hole, right? Or just because something was left unresolved doesn't mean that it is a plot hole. Okay, but people like to toss that around just because I guess it makes them feel better when I don't get it. Fuck it. It's a plot hole. That's a plot hole because I don't get it. It's like, no, that's not how that's not a plot hole. A plot hole is essentially an inconsistency in the narrative, in logic, something that may not make sense. You could point, for example, here's a good example of what could be perceived as a plot hole, but then why I don't believe it is a plot hole. You could, and this is one of the reasons why people start or tend to harp on this in the original Halloween. Halloween always makes it into the show somehow, right? Michael Myers driving the car. Now, you could look at that as a plot hole because, well, if he spent 15 years in a sanitarium and he was locked up since he was 6 years old, and there's nothing in the movie, that how does he know how to drive? That doesn't make any sense. The reason why it's never bothered me is because, now, when you're first watching the movie, you could be thinking to yourself, of course, at that time, you don't really know that he's been locked up for 15 years. You only find that out from Dr. Loomis later on. You know that 15 years have passed, but you don't know what's been going on there, right? I watched for 15 years, sitting in a room, staring at the wall, not seeing the wall, looking past the wall, blah, 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 blah. So, my God, it's a plot hole. How does he know how to drive? But the reason why it works is because the characters in the story draw attention to it as well. So it grounds it in reality. It gives you, it authenticates your, it validates, I should say, it validates your skepticism because you have Dr. Loomis and Dr. Wynn just as confused. People just tuning in right now would be like, I thought we were talking Back to the Future. We are. I'm comparing plot holes. So because they do that, it validates almost like, Jesus, even the characters think this is weird. So it feels organic. It feels intentional, which obviously it is intentional. It's not a lapse in logic or the narrative or something that doesn't make sense at all. You know what I mean? When it comes to Back to the Future, it is, I think it's safe to say it's one of those movies that is near perfect. I mean, just unbelievable, right? Let's take a look at the article from The Hollywood Reporter. See if I can bring my little self up here. Oh, there we go. I think I'm up. Dun, 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 dun. 1 second here. There I am. Let's move this over. Ba-da-da-da. There you go. You guys can hear me all right? You should be able to hear me all right because the audio levels say you can. So let's hope that is the case. Okay, so let's read this. Oh, look at that. It's Patrick Stewart, Hollywood Reporter, and their ads. Anyways, the headline here, free advertising for the Hollywood Reporter and their sponsors, ladies and gentlemen. So, of course, this is from the Hollywood Reporter, and it is Back to the Future screenwriter closes plot hole amid renewed debate. Oh, really? There's a... and I didn't know what they were talking about because I was like, there's a plot. Like, I'm thinking there's like legitimately something where you're like, what the fuck? Not something that, you're kind of like, you can debate it. Plot holes, like, to me, something that is a definite plot hole is something that has very little debate about. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe you might be able to debate it, but it's pretty much just like, no, this is... that's oops. You know what I mean? When I read this headline, I was thinking to myself, really? There's a plot hole? Really? Fuck, I didn't know. What the hell is this? And I read it, and I can totally understand what people are saying and what people are thinking and why they're thinking this, because I've thought it too, and I think we all have. When you watch Back to the Future, you can't help but think this, but I don't think it's a plot hole, really. And I think the screenwriter does a really good job of explaining why. And I'll give you my thoughts on that as well. Anyways, let's just see good old Patrick Stewart there and go past Patrick Stewart down to the, just want to make sure I'm not missing. There we go. Okay, so Jesus, I don't want to miss it. There we go. We'll just go to there. So it says there, Bob Gale ends the decades-long argument among fans once and for all. The debate about an apparent plot hole in the Back to the Future in Back to the Future recently reignited amid the popular social media trend 5 perfect movies. I saw people talking about that. This is until screenwriter Bob Gale closed the case for good. What started as a fun Twitter list for the top 5 suggestions to which to watch during quarantine turned into some serious business as stars and filmmakers began to debate just what makes a film perfect. Hey, 3 months free Amazon Music. Free advertising for Amazon. Marvel filmmaker James Gunn argued via Twitter, a perfect film can be different from a favorite film or a great film. That is true, ladies and gentlemen. A perfect film should be quantifiable, right? We should be able to measure this objectively. So it really doesn't matter what I think of it personally in terms of whether I like it or not. We should be able to point to things that might show us why it is quote unquote perfect film. And if you like the movie, of course, that's even better, right? Okay, perfect film. A perfect film is something that sings from start to finish with no obvious mistakes, whether they be aesthetic or structural. Sorry, this is kind of a bit small on my screen here. Structural. Yes. Okay, there are no logical lapses. No logical lapses. He pointed to 1985's Back to the Future's writing. Sorry, let me try that again. He pointed to 1985's Back to the Future, writing, Back to the Future seemingly could be imperfect. Why don't mom and dad remember Marty? We've all thought that, right? Why doesn't the mom or father, why doesn't Crispin, why don't they remember Marty? He looks identical. He's wearing the fucking, how come when he puts on that vest, how come they didn't go, hey, you know what? There was a guy that looked exactly like you in 1955 wearing the same fucking vest. Holy snap and crap, what's going on? We've all kind of thought that, right? We've all kind of thought that. Yeah, that's right. Be careful. Darren's right. Be careful with these ads in your browser. I totally agree. Of course, I'll probably get dinged. Well, whatever. Let me see here. Where was I? I should have put this up a little larger for me, but then it'll change it on your end as well. Right. But I would still argue it's a perfect film. This is, again, James Gunn, I believe, is saying this. But I would still argue that it's a perfect film because there are reasons why this could conceivably be the case. Time protects itself from unraveling, etc. Or maybe I'm in denial. Who knows? Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh, one sec here. Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy star Chris Pratt replied, explaining the situation as best as he saw it. Quote, maybe they do remember him though, not as Marty, but as Calvin. When Marty returns to present day 1985, it could have been years since his parents would have perhaps originally noted the uncanny resemblance between their son and the kid from high school 20 years previous. Actually, it's 30 years previous, but, well, Pat is correct. 20, yeah. That kid from high school. Oh, I see. 20 years previous when, say, he was like 10 or something like that. I get it. Yeah. Fair enough. Well, Pratt is correct. Gale, the screenwriter for Back to the Future, settled the debate once and for all on Wednesday, telling the Hollywood Reporter, bear in mind that George and Laraine only knew Marty and Calvin for 8 days when they were 17, and they did not even see him every one of those 8 days. So many years later, they still remember the interesting kid who got them together. So many years later, they still might remember that interesting kid who got them together on their first date. He continued, but I would ask anyone to think back to their own high school days and ask themselves how they remember a kid who might have been at their school for even a semester, or someone you went out with just one time. Look at all these ads coming up. Canon, free marketing for you guys. Maybe I can make that. Of course, it's a little too late now. It's probably a little too late now. Just thinking maybe I can make that a bit bigger, but anyways, whatever. It's too late now. Ding me. Go ahead. Ding me, YouTube. Go ahead. Where was I here? Or someone you went out with just one time. If you had no photo reference after 25 years, you'd probably have just a hazy recollection. That's true. Concluded Gale, so Laraine and George might think it's funny that they once occasionally met someone named Calvin Klein. Wait a minute. They might think it funny that they once actually met someone named Calvin Klein, and even if they thought their son at age 16 or 17 had some resemblance to him, it wouldn't be a big deal. I bet most of us could look through our high school yearbooks and find photos of our teenage classmates that bear some resemblance to our children. Case closed, Doc. So there you have it. That is what Bob Gale, the... One second here. I'm, you know what? Let me just, there we go. That's what I want to get rid of. There we go. And then I am, wait, that's, why are you not, wait, there we go. And I'm back, ladies and germs. So, okay, so, I was free advertising for Canon and for an interview with Patrick Stewart. I'm just that guy. I just like giving free stuff out. It's who I am. Man. It's who I am. So when I read that, I thought, oh, so people think that's a plot hole. Well, you know, it's sort of a catch-22 because I do see what they're saying. And there is no point in the movie where that is referenced or drawn attention to. And not that there needs to be. And maybe in a movie like that, maybe it's unnecessary to do so. It might sort of maybe hurt the charm of the film a little bit. And you don't want your audience to... you want to believe that your audience is smart enough to come to different conclusions and scenarios on their own. Because what Bob Gale is saying is, in fact, correct. I mean, Marty wasn't, although Marty played an integral role in getting them together, and he was definitely there, for 8 days. He's right that he wasn't with them every second of every moment for 8 days. It would be like that kid that, and I've experienced this, we probably all have, where we've experienced a kid that's come to your school and they're there for a very short period of time. Like Bob Gale said, maybe a semester, if that. They're there for maybe that. I mean, and unless you are, unless they, and then they leave, and then 30 years goes by and you have a son or a daughter that resembles them. Do you know what I mean? Like it's sort of, it might not even be something, maybe George and Laraine are aware of that. They are aware of it, but it's been 30 years, right? And, 20 years maybe when they started to notice that he had a bit of a resemblance, because they met Calvin when Calvin was 17. So maybe it wasn't until 10, 12, 13 when they really were like, wow, he kind of looks like that. That guy that got us together, it kind of looks like him a little bit. But it's a conversation they would have had amongst themselves, not necessarily to Marty, because it's irrelevant. Or maybe it's a conversation they will still have with Marty, but we just don't see that. It's not really a plot hole, because just as easily as it can be kind of, you can kind of go, well, that doesn't make any sense. You can actually point to things that logically would make sense, and so it's just something that I think was left. It's a question that was left maybe unanswered if it was ever proposed in the first place. But I don't think it's a lapse in logic, because I think the audience has to understand that enough time has gone by that, or who's to say that Laraine and George haven't had that conversation with Marty, right? Now, we didn't see it, okay? I think it's the fact that we didn't see it. And maybe if there was one scene with George and Laraine and they were making breakfast or something, or Marty's in there, he's like, hey, I just gotta go, I'll be back in a second, or, whatever, and he leaves, the room, and George and Laraine kind of go, he really kind of reminds me of that guy that we knew years ago. Something like that. Maybe not that on the nose. That might be a little too in your face, but something like that, where it just lets the audience know that, hey, we know, it's intentional, it's strategic. Don't worry. They're, you know what I mean? But I don't necessarily, I side with Bob Gale in the sense that I don't necessarily believe that it is absolutely 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, that they would have looked at their son Marty and been like, oh my God, it is the guy. Did you time travel? What the fuck is going on? He time traveled. What the hell? No, let's be honest here, right? At the most, they would probably on their own think, wow, he kind of looks like that kid we grew up with that was at our school for a week and suddenly disappeared and we had no idea what happened to him, right? And he was kind of responsible for getting us together. That kid that your dad hit? Do you remember that guy? Yeah, our son kind of looks like him a little bit. Yeah, he does kind of look like him a little bit, right? And that's it. It wouldn't, that's probably at best what would have happened. I don't think logic tells us that that George and Laraine would have been like, holy Jesus, it is him. There's got to be a fucking time machine around here somewhere. I don't think that logic doesn't tell us that that's what would have happened, right? Because there's no such thing as time machines. There's no such thing as time travel, except Doc Brown has one and figured it out, right? They still live in the real world, quote unquote. They're not living in a world where time travel is an everyday thing, where it's just everybody's time traveling, right? Whereas if in the Back to the Future universe, in that first movie, time travel was just a thing you did like riding a bike, well, then I can see logic would tell us, then I could see George and Laraine kind of going, wait a minute, that's kind of weird, right? You know, do you think that maybe, whoa, wait a second, because the probability of that, of thinking that would be more probable, I guess. But in a real world, even though the Back to the Future universe has a bit of, you know, it's a little satiric, it's got some cartoony kind of elements to it, right? Certainly with Marty's parents. And they're very, some of the, like Biff, you know, hi, how are you? You know, he comes in and it's cartoonish, but it's still a real world environment. And I don't think George and Laraine would have, logic tells me because of that environment, I don't think George and Laraine would be thinking that. I think at most, like I said, I think they would be like, at some point in time, they would, either when he hit 10 or 12 or 13, maybe they would have been like, you know, he kind of looks like that kid that got us together. Yeah, you're right. Maybe, you know what? Maybe it's fate. Maybe, you know, we had a kid that kind of looks like that kid. That's kind of funny. Like in some sort of spiritual sense, that's kind of like, you know, that's kind of cool, you know, or something. I don't know. Who knows what they would be thinking? But I highly doubt, if you want to be serious, that they would be thinking, oh my God, there must be a time machine somewhere. You're not Marty, you're Kelvin. You know, it's like, I don't think that would have happened at all. So I think Bob Gale is right. I think logic tells us, really at the end of the day, that it is likely that they do not remember him as clear as we do because we're watching the movie. If you want to take it within the actual universe itself, right? 20 years, 30 years have gone by. They've had a couple of kids as well. It's not just Marty. It's not like he's an only child, right? They've had a couple of kids. There's been all sorts of things that, you know, who knows if they even have their yearbooks? Who knows if they keep in touch with them? I mean, you know, George was a pretty fucking, you know, he's kind of nerdy, although he did end up with Laraine, and who knows what happened after that. And so I don't know. I just don't think I understand what people are saying. Totally, because it crossed my mind too. But then as quickly as it comes into my mind, I can fill my mind with logical scenarios of what is probably likely in a situation like that. When you think, well, do I remember? I mean, listen, I haven't been in high school. It hasn't been 30 years, but it has been about 21, well, I graduated in 98. I should have graduated in 97 because I failed grade 4. But it's been, you know, 20, let's say, I mean, I'm 41 this year. So, you know, 21, 2, 3, 4, 24, 25 since I was 16. So let's say it's been 25 years since I was Marty's age, right? Right? 24 years. Thinking of people in high school right now, I mean, I can think of people, obviously, you know, I remember certain people, but you could have somebody who I spoke to, like, you could have somebody that I spoke to for a week that maybe we did a project together or something like that. And do you know what I mean? Like, and maybe I see their face now, and I'm like, oh, they look kind of familiar, but I can't put my finger on, or they kind of look like that person that was in my school, but I wouldn't think it was them. You know what I mean? That's the key here. That's really the crux of this debate. Is it likely that George and Laraine would think Marty was Calvin? That is the question. The question is not whether do they recognize that Marty, their son, looks a little bit like that kid in 1955 that got them together and that her father hit with a car and had dinner with them that night. And that's really not the question, because the probability is likely that maybe, because there were significant events in that week. So it's likely that they might remember that. But then the question is, do they think it's actually Calvin? And the probability tells me no. So then the whole thing just becomes moot, if you think about it, right? So that's really what it is. It's more about, you know, do George and Laraine recognize Marty as having a resemblance to Calvin? Probably, maybe, yeah. We haven't seen that conversation take place, but there probably was some at some point. But then the question is, do they think it's actually Calvin? And the answer would be no, obviously, because they don't live in a world where time travel is possible. I mean, it is possible, but they don't know that, right? So I think that is probably where it should rest. I think Bob Gale is right. I don't think it's a plot hole at all, because I think it's not really a lapse in logic per se. I mean, it can be a lapse in logic, but then you have to be able to prove that George and Laraine would think that that was actually Calvin. That's what it comes down to. You would have to be able to prove that George and Laraine think Marty is actually Calvin. And you can't, there's no evidence of that. There's no evidence of that. So regardless of whether they think Marty resembles Calvin or not, really is irrelevant if they actually don't believe it's him. If they actually don't believe Marty is Calvin, it's irrelevant whether they think he looks like him or not. So it's not a plot hole. It's not a plot. It would only be a plot hole if they believe that Marty is Calvin. And and logic tells me because of the universe that that's not probable. So that's how I feel about it anyway. I'd be interested to know your thoughts on it. And you can comment below and let me know. Maybe I'll make a social media post about that too, because that's actually a good thing. But yeah, no, I don't believe that at all. Darren Sand says, I remember as a kid being blown away by the DeLorean knocking over the tree at Twin Pines Mall, only for the mall to be called Lawn Pine Mall in the future. Or Lone Pine Mall in the future. Wait, wait a minute. I was blown away by DeLorean knocking over a tree at Twin Pines Mall, only for the mall to be called Lone Pine Mall. Oh, I see what you're saying. Is it actually called that? Is it actually called that? Or are you talking about like a Mandela effect? I thought it was Twin Pines Mall. Maybe I'm having a Mandela effect myself. Fascinating. Duke Fleet says, I agree, Dave, but Marty helped his parents get together. I mean, they're supposed to remember a lot about him, even physically. Yes, that's true. But again, the question for it to be a plot hole, it's not whether they remember or think Marty looks like Calvin. They can think he looks like Calvin all they want. If they don't believe it is Calvin, then it's not a plot hole, right? Because if they believe it's Calvin, then you got to be like, well, wait a minute. Why aren't the parents questioning this? Why aren't they? But if they just think their son resembles the kid that got them together 30 years ago, so what? Like as Bob Gale said, flip through your old high school yearbook. You could find tons of people that probably resemble your children. You know what I mean? So I think that's what we have to remember is that it's not really about whether they think he resembles him, which is absolutely likely in a real world scenario, 100%. But it's unlikely they believe it actually is Calvin from the past, because they actually conceived Marty and watched him grow up as a baby. So then now what are we going to bring in? Like reincarnation or something? Did Calvin die in some accident and he's been reincarnated as their child? I mean, now you're bringing in a whole other thing. They would have to believe that Marty is Calvin for it to be a plot hole. And we don't have any evidence of that. We just don't have any evidence of that. Them just recognizing him is not a plot hole. Maybe I'll do a standalone video on this. Although I am doing it here on MCRAE Live. But anyway, Todd Fayer sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Todd. And by the way, Big G, I did get your super chat. Big G, if you're watching, at me and send it to me again. I did get it. But I think it was, I hope this episode of MCRAE Live won't ruin the movie for you. Well, I hope it hasn't. I think that was your super chat. So I hope it hasn't. Todd Fayer sends a super chat, says, in Back to the Future, while Marty B's in the, well, Marty B's in the past as Calvin Klein, he told his future parents, call me Marty. So they knew his name, so they must have known something when Marty looked like the Calvin/Marty from 30 years ago. Well, again, knowing and thinking it's possible that they named their son after the one who got them together, right? And in an ironic twist of events, he grows up to resemble somebody who looks like Marty, in the past. I mean, remember, they would have no photographs of Calvin Klein. They would have no photographs. They would have no video. He wouldn't be in the yearbook because he wasn't actually a student there. So all they would have to go on is their memory. That would be it. All they would have to go on is their memory. And, it's sort of like, I believe that what that was implying was they named Marty Marty in honor of the boy who got them together. Do you know what I mean? And he has a resemblance. But again, it's not about the resemblance. It's not about them thinking Marty looks like Calvin. Who cares? That doesn't mean it's a plot hole, because just because we didn't see them go, wow, he looks like fucking Calvin Klein, doesn't mean that they haven't or won't, right? It's, do they believe it is Calvin? And the universe that Back to the Future is set in doesn't lend us to believe that they would, because time travel is not possible to the general, you know what I mean? It is in this little like Doc Brown kind of, you know what I mean? But it's not like a futuristic sci-fi film. So, yeah, I get what you're saying, but it's not a plot hole. It's because there's no evidence to suggest that they would absolutely 100% believe it's Calvin. None. And them thinking he looks like Calvin is not a plot hole, because that's actually probably true. But that doesn't mean that it's a plot hole, in my opinion anyway. Jay Hayes says there would have been a photograph of Marty when he was playing Johnny Be Good. Then they would recognize him. The photo would also be in a yearbook or something like that. How do you know there would be a photo of him? Did somebody take a picture of him? Did somebody take a picture of him playing Johnny Be Good? Or are you just assuming that there would be a photo of him in a yearbook or something like that? You see, you say, or something like that. You can't say, or something like that. You have to come with facts, right? Is there a point in the movie that, now, and maybe there is, I'm not saying there isn't, but is there a point in the movie where we see somebody taking a photograph of Marty playing Johnny Be Good? Or are you just assuming that they would have done that, right? Maybe not. I mean, this is 1955. There weren't a lot of people running around with, cameras in 1955, okay? So, and the average student's not going to have a camera. It would be designated to some yearbook committee classmate or something like that. It's not like everybody's there with their phones. Today, if that was happening today, I would say, yeah, it probably was. It probably was. But in terms of photographs of Marty in 1955, I don't think that's possible. I don't remember that happening at all. So, I don't remember any photographs being taken of that at all, of the under the sea enchantment dance, whatever that was called. Frank Riker sends a super chat, says, thanks, Dave. Back to the Future 4 is the Maury Povich edition. Can you imagine the Maury Povich edition? That would be funny. Nick Push's Horror Channel says the weirdest part would be, does Laraine remember Marty's uncle, Doc? And do they know their son hangs out with an old inventor now? That's true too. And, maybe, I mean, listen, when I was 16 years old, I met a lot of parents. Think about this. Like I met a lot of parents of friends and whatever. In another 10 years, if I had a kid who was hanging out with somebody that it wouldn't dawn on me. And even if it did, again, I would think, oh, that person kind of resembles that person. At no point in time would I think it is absolutely that person, 100%, because it's not physically possible. In the Back to the Future universe, it's not physically possible, as far as they know, right? So that's kind of where I lean on that. It's important that it's just important that we know that you can play this game, right? You can say, what about this? What about this? What about this? But we have to, look, could somebody have taken a photo of Marty playing Johnny Be Good? Maybe, but we didn't see it, right? So as far as we know, he was only there for 8 days. He wouldn't have been in the yearbook. There would have been no photographs of him. There would have been no traces of him in that time, in 1955. So if they wanted to search, after he went back to 1985, if they wanted to search for Marty, if they were like, whatever happened to Calvin? What's going on? Hey, let's see if we can find him. They'd never be able to find him. They would never be able to find his parents, because they are his parents. They would never be able to find a trace of him. He literally would have vanished off the face of the earth. The only recollection they have, regardless of whether the events that he had on their lives were significant, and they were, the only recollection they have is in their mind. This is before Facebook. This is, before social media, and I've always said this, and I'm not saying that this is a fact, but I think it's it's an interesting thing to think about. That now I know in the States, okay, high school reunions and things like that are much more popular than they are almost anywhere else in the world. Although they do happen all over the world, depending on where you are, of course. They do happen here in Canada as well. But I've noticed that since social media, since Facebook, and I don't know if you've noticed this or not, because it's not like we're up on high school reunions, but people I've talked to, I've noticed that high school reunions are not a big thing, at least not as big as they used to be. And I've often wondered if it's because there's no reason to go anymore because of social media. Back in the 60s or the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, there was no social media. So when you left high school, if you never saw that person again, the first time you would see that person again would be at a high school reunion 20, 25 years later. Now, and we know this is true, you have people adding, each other to Facebook all the time for no other reason, not to talk, not to connect, not to say, hey, what's up, just because you want to see what they fucking look like now, because you want to see if they're married or have children, because you want to see if their life is better or more miserable than yours. I mean, that's it. And, you got that. It's like the reunion. It's like a mini high school reunion, depending on who you add or try to add, or how many of us have creeped Facebook profiles. We've all done it. We've all go, hey, I wonder whatever happened to so-and-so. Let's see if they have Facebook. You get on there. They do. Do they have an open profile? You get on there. They do. You start scrolling like, wow, so that's what they look like now. Okay, whatever. And that's it, right? And we know what these people look like. Whatever happened to John Schlenka? I go on Facebook. There he is. I know what he looks like. Oh my God, there he is. He's balding. He's fat. He's skinny. He's got plugs. He's got whatever. There he is. 30 years ago, you didn't get that. So if you were trying to remember somebody from 30 years before that, all you had was your memory of that person. And memories over the course of decades, you start to remember things a bit differently than how they actually were. I don't mean a completely different sequence of events. Remember when your father hit Calvin with the jet plane? I mean, it's not like that. Obviously, it would be the car. But there's a lot of nuances and details that you forget about. Remembering Calvin from 1955 in 1985 would be like, and because he was only there for 8 days, it would be like having eyewitness testimony from 30 years ago. That's a tricky thing. It was a very different time. So I don't believe at all that it's a plot hole, because in order for it to be a plot hole, you would have to be able to prove conclusively, or at least with a very high probability, that they don't just think he resembles Calvin, they believe he is Calvin. Because resembling Calvin, so what? There's a lot of people that resemble people that you have people that, and it's just not a big deal to me. Just not a big deal to me. It's not a plot hole. I agree with Bob Gale 100%. Super chat comes in from Eddie Greens 101. Thank you, Eddie. Really appreciate that, man. Yo, Dave, love this kind of talk. For your information, everybody, if you want to hear more future tech talk, check out Dave's episode 32 of the Eddie Green 101's Apple Podcasts, Eddie Podcasts on Spotify. Check it out. That's right. Eddie was nice enough to have me on his podcast, I guess back in February. And I think it was February the 8th, if I'm not mistaken. And that was a lot of fun, man. Frank Riker sends in the super chat and says, here's a technical issue with the movie, Dave. DeLorean ceased in 1982 and had a speed of only 85 miles per hour. Thought I'd get it out there before but Dave ceased in 1982 and had a speed of only 85 miles per hour. What were they trying to, 88, it was 88, I think it was, right? Really? It was only 85, was it? I don't know about that. You could be right. Well, ceasing in 1982 is not a big deal because obviously the movie takes place in 1985. So that's okay. If the movie was, taking place before, that would be a bit different. But certainly when the DeLorean stopped operations, that's okay. But if it only had only 85 miles per hour, interesting. You could fill in. You could say something like, and that's not a plot hole per se, but you could say something then like, well, maybe Doc Brown was fiddling around with it and he got it to get an extra. I think it was 88 miles an hour, right? Is that what it was? What they had to get the, when this thing gets to 88 miles an hour, you're going to see some serious shit. Was it 88? I think it was 88. Interesting. I didn't know that. Eddie Greens 101 says, oh, and by the way, did you look into Streamlabs? Could be making even more bank from these donations. Just say, I haven't looked into Streamlabs yet. It's not something that I may do it in the future, but I haven't done that yet. But I am aware of Streamlabs, 100%. I am aware of it. Let's see. Justin Valdera says, Dave, another thing to think about is why is it at first when we see Marty's parents at home, they don't seem like interesting people, and after he comes back from the past, they're much happier and look better. Well, that's because Marty has it's because primarily because before how am I going to say this? It's more, he's changed the, okay, let me see if I can say this. I'm trying to compartmentalize my thoughts. They're more interesting people and more put together and more normal, per se, not losers, because of the effect that Marty had on them in the past and the lessons that were learned when Marty went back to the past. You see, because they didn't meet that way. Like there was no guy named Calvin that's not how they originally met, right? So it was a very different, it's the lessons and the impact that he had on them. And, you know, through the confrontation with Biff and they just became more appreciative, wiser, humbler people. And Marty, Calvin, is responsible for that. It was the lessons they've learned. He put them, instead of on a, you know, trajectory that would make them real losers, you know, he made them quite sophisticated members, contributing members of society. So that's essentially, I mean, that's the Cliff Notes version of why. And but when you go and watch the movie, you can look at the details and how he's impacted their lives and he made George a stronger, confident person, right? His dad was a wimp. His dad was a loser. His dad was, I don't think I have the confidence, you know, I'm your destiny, you know, or whatever he says, right? And it's like density. He says density. I'm your density. I love it. He was a loser, and Laraine wasn't a loser, but she was, you know, he was a loser. And, you know, yeah, it's the court. He made his father more confident in himself, more confident in being able to take on Biff and punch Biff. He made his dad not a loser anymore. You know what I mean? So again, that's not a plot hole. It's the reason why his parents have changed is because of the impact, the positive impact that Marty and the trend and the residual effects of those events and the lessons learned in those 8 days, you know, set them on a very, very different path. And now you get, you know, hello, it's coming in after playing tennis or whatever, and they have shades on, and, you know, they're just like, wow, this is like, what the hell's going on here, right? Yeah, that's why. Robert Thidoff says, Dave, I think the bigger plot hole is in Back to the Future 2, when old Biff comes back from 1955 after delivering the almanac. Wouldn't he come back to a new 2015? Well, again, I don't think that's a plot hole, right? Because you have to be able to. Okay, so I think the bigger plot hole is in Back to the Future 2 when old Biff comes back to 1955 after delivering the almanac. Wouldn't he come back to a new 2015? Well, so why did he, I got to talk Back to the Future 2. Right, so old Biff goes back to 1955. He goes back to 1955 to give the almanac to young Biff so he can change the course of his life throughout history. That's why he goes back to 1955. Right? So he wouldn't he come back to a new 2015? No, because of the events of what happened with, no. It's all there. Like, you have to look at so he goes back to 1955 to give young Biff the almanac, right? Because he wants young Biff to be able to, he wants to change the course of history. And then where does old Biff go? Old Biff, I forget now, because I haven't watched Back to the Future 2 in a while. Someone remind me. So old Biff goes back to 1955, gives young Biff the old almanac. And then where does old Biff go? Because I haven't seen that movie in a while. He goes, no, I know he goes back to 1955. Biff goes to his house. Frank says Biff goes to his house. Back, but it's instantaneous. I'm confused. I'd have to watch Back to the Future 2 again, because in order for Biff to get back to 1955, and then they go back to 85. Dave, have you seen the... Yes, yeah. I'm trying to, old Biff gives young Biff the almanac in 1955, but then old Biff goes back to 2015. He drops a DeLorean back in 2015, so Doc and Marty didn't realize he stole it. Well, part of the reason why maybe things haven't changed in 2015 yet is because, I mean, time is relative, right? So, yeah, I got to watch. I hear what you guys are saying. I hear what you guys are saying, but I'd have to watch the movie again. Old Biff comes back to an unaltered 1985 after giving young Biff an almanac in 1955. An unaltered. Yeah, I'm seeing what you guys are saying. I'm going to have to watch the movie again, because it's hard to decipher in just text. The new family's in the McFly house. Yes. No, I do remember that. Yeah, no, Biff gives him the reason why there's an alternate 1985 is because of what Biff did by giving his younger self in 1955 the almanac, right? So that's why there's an alternate 1985. And yeah, I'd have to, because when Doc and Marty get into the DeLorean in 2015 and realize that Biff's been in the almanac, or Biff's been in the DeLorean, maybe things have changed a little bit. But we don't see it. Like, I need to watch the movie again. To be fair to myself, I haven't watched the movie in a bit, so I'd have to watch the movie again. The probability of it being a plot hole is low, because, they would be thinking about those things. And it could be very explainable. I'd have to go back to see if there's, like as Nick P says, if there was time. Yeah, I gotta think about that, because again, he parks the DeLorean back at the street in 2015 and breaks the cane. I remember that, and he falls behind the crash cans. I remember that. But then how soon after do Marty and Doc get into the DeLorean and go back to 1985? Like, soon thereafter? Like, do we get to see 2015 again? Do we get to see the immediately? So there you go. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily if it is immediately, it's not like who knows, maybe things could have changed. If they had driven around again, they would have been like, well, that's different, that's strange, right? But I think they do kind of go immediately back, right? I think it's pretty immediate. When Doc and Marty go to 2015, old Biff steals a DeLorean. No, I remember all that. Goes to 1955, gives young Biff the almanac. Yep, then comes back to 2015, and that's the last time you see old Biff. Okay, right. So, and then after they discover the cane, the head of his cane in the car, they go back immediately, right, to 1985, and they realize it's an alternate version 1985. I think that's probably the scenario, is because you have to understand that if they go back immediately, it's not like you're going to come back to 2015 and it looks visibly like everything's there. There's things could have changed. But we just didn't have the opportunity to see that. So again, I don't think that's a plot hole. I don't think that's a plot hole. I think it's just they see the cane like, oh my God, we got to go back to 1955, or we got to go back to 1985. They go back to 1985. Oh my God, it's like Donald Trump Biff, right? Oh my God, now we got to go back to 1955 to change 1985 to stop Biff from getting the almanac altogether. I mean, so it seems right to me. It seems right to me. If they had come back to April 1955 to 2015, and then the rest of the movie takes place in 2015, and there's no changes, and that might seem a little strange because that seems a little weird, right? But I think it's pretty much on point. I got to watch Back to the Future 2 again. I usually watch the first one the most. And I do like 2. I will say I do like Back to the Future 2. I do like it. I don't like it as good as as good. I don't like it as much as the first one, but I do like it. Interesting. This has been a fun discussion. I like this. This is fun. But yeah, definitely though, I can certainly tell you that, in my opinion, the plot hole in Back to the Future is not a plot hole. Is not a plot hole. I'll probably make a social media post about it. Oh, Mark Johnson says, the DeLorean's top speed was clocked in at 110 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 9.5 seconds. So yes, it would reach 88 miles per hour. Oh, there you go. Okay, then Frank, you can talk to Mark there. I'm not sure. I didn't know. Either way. Back to the Future 2 is technically stunning. The continuity is amazing. I agree. I mean, from what I remember from Back to the Future 2, it's been a few years since I've seen it, but I always thought it was smart. Of course, what they did to Crispin Glover, I think, was a bit of a shit move, but beyond that, as Darren says, the technically, and how they were able to go back and to 1955 and to have Marty seeing himself and the whole, like, it was really well done. Really, really well done. Dean Cundy there for you as well. Dean Cundy did the entire trilogy. Lauren Downing says, yes, they got Jennifer out of her and Marty's house and went back to 1985, which was changed already. Then all the stuff with Rich Biff, then they got back to 1955. That is correct. That is absolutely right. Alexander Derksen. No, Derksen. Hello from Germany, Dave. You are awesome. Well, thank you. If you had a time machine, where would you go back in your life? Oh, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Where would I go back in my life if I had a time machine? I would probably go back. I would either go back to the 80s to see the 80s again. I think would be really cool. Or I would go back to high school, but a certain part of my high school. I had a good time in high school. We had a good time. When I say we, I mean like me and my friends. We had a lot of fun. There was not everything was great about high school, obviously, but I miss those days. In terms of because I'm still friends with my two buddies. Now, Bruce and I were friends in high school, obviously, in the sense of during high school time, but we didn't go to the same high school. Bruce went to an arts high school, and I just went to a regular public high school. And so the funny thing is that Bruce and I have remained best friends for nearly 30 years, and we never went to the same high school. We went to the same junior high school. We met in 92. We were never in the same class, ever. We never took any of the same classes, ever. Strange, but our love of movies and art and creating brought us together. And then, here we are making a movie, It's Me, Billy, right? And both working in the industry. Two different areas of the industry, but both in the industry. So it's kind of crazy to think. My two best friends in high school, actually in my high school, who I hung out with at school and got together with after school and things like that. And I did with Bruce as well, but my two high school buddies, I would say. My high school best friends are Evan Malamud and Brian Bork. And we're still in touch today. Obviously, I live in Toronto and they live in Ottawa, which is about a 4.5-5 hour drive away. So we don't see each other as much as we would like. But we did see each other last summer. I don't know if you guys follow me on social media. They came down in the summer. and they were here, and we went to a restaurant, had a photo taken, and I posted to my social media. I'm not sure if you guys saw that, but those are my two best friends from high school, like actually in high school, and I miss them a lot. I mean, obviously they're dads now with, you know, kids and lives, but I do miss them a lot, and they're the kind of friends, whether it's Bruce, Evan, or Brian, they are the kind of friends that, if you haven't, it sounds like such a cliche, but it's totally true. I could not speak or see Evan or Brian for, like, you know, 10 years, and we could get together, which hasn't happened, thank God. I mean, we actually are, we do see each other, I'd say once every few years. There's a reason that they have to come here, or, you know, I have to go there. Usually they have to come here, to Toronto. It's like picking up, like it's nobody's business. Like, it's like no time has passed. You know what I mean? And that's the one thing I really appreciate about having a friendship like that. And I've known Evan since 1995, and Brian since 1996, and Bruce since 92. So now Bruce obviously lives in Toronto, so and working in the industry and working together, we obviously see each other a lot more. If Evan and Brian lived here in Toronto, we'd be seeing each other a lot more too. But it's so cool. It's so cool to be able to have friends and you know, that you still know today. So I would go back there. I would go back to that time, because that was a good time, and my mom and dad were alive too. You know, and it would be really cool to see my mom and dad again. That's the one thing that is hard about death, you know, is that it's forever. It's absolute. And, you know, they ain't coming back. So I would say, yeah, the 80s when I was a kid, like, you know, a young boy, like, you know, 7, 8, 9, and high school, I think is when I would go back. There's probably other points too, but that's how I feel off the top of my head anyway. John Nichols says, cars can faster than the speedometer shows. I had an old Chevy truck with an 85 mile per hour Speedo. Speedo? Really? There was a Speedo? You had an old Chevy truck with an 85 mile per hour Speedo? I know what you mean. But I know from racing friends that it would go over 100. I don't know a lot about cars. Okay. I will say that. I have a Dodge Challenger. But people, because I have that kind of car, people assume that I must be a car guy. No, I'm not. I'm really not. I just love the look of the car. I love the speed of the car. I've always wanted one, and I was able to get one last year. It's a 2019. And, so that's why I have it. But I certainly am not I've actually come to learn more about cars and about the muscle car, and you know, because of naturally owning a Challenger, you look up stuff and you read about stuff. So I've definitely learned a lot. And then when I was in LA, I rented a Mustang while we were there for the week, so that was fun. I was trying to rent a Challenger. I wanted to rent a Challenger because I'm a Challenger guy, but they didn't have any, so they only had a Mustang. I was like, all right, I'll take the Mustang, and it was a nice car, very very different, smaller than the Challenger, because Challengers are quite muscly, but it was fun. So I definitely have learned a lot about cars, but I'm not a car guy. Like, there's a lot of things that car guys could say, and I'd be like, oh, what the fuck you're talking about? I really don't know. But love the look of it and the feel of it and the drive of it. And, you know, it's great. Jim Dorsey says, I have a 2019 Dodge Challenger as well, Dave. Awesome. I'm also not a car guy. Do you have the all-wheel drive version? I do not have the all-wheel drive version. No, I have the rear-wheel drive version. So it's like, yeah, yeah, no, I don't. The next, because, yeah, if I get it again, I'll probably think about that. Because certainly up here in Canada and living in Toronto, Ontario, you know, it's like living in the northeast of the U.S., you know, like Pennsylvania, New York, things like that, right? So we get harsh winters up here. So, thankfully, like I said, I do most of my work from home, so I'm not commuting every day. So when it does snow, I'm able to I don't necessarily have to go out. So yeah, no, it's rear wheel drive, but it's a beaut. Jim Dorsey says, I got the all-wheel drive, handles the snow like a Jeep. Amazing. That's totally awesome, man. Totally awesome. You know what? There were a few times I had to go out and, yeah, there were a few times I had to go out and obviously in sleek weather. and it was all right. It was all right. I mean, certainly I could feel that I was driving a rear-wheel drive car. Certainly when it's slippery and there's snow, or it's snowing, or it's just snowed. You know what I'm saying? But, you just don't be a dick. Like, it really is, just don't be a dick. Like, yes, I realize I can, as in like 3 seconds, but why am I going to do that? It's completely unnecessary. Why am I going to do that? It's snowing. There's snow on the ground. I mean, now's not, wait for the summer. You know what I mean? It's why am I going to do that? So I found that I would just drive very slow, and I would turn the corners very slowly and go up to the light and then, turn, and it was fine. It was fine. It was no issues. I think people only have issues because, they're in and it would be this case with any rear-wheel drive car, but if they're in a Challenger or a whatever, and they have rear-wheel drive and they just feel that, well, I'm in this car, so I gotta, no, you don't. You don't have to do that. Just, you got the power, but you don't have to flaunt it. It's fucking snowing. Just take it easy. Just get home safely. That's how I felt anyway. And maybe it's because I'm not a car guy, so I don't feel the need to necessarily flex my masculinity in unnecessary situations. Like a car guy would. It's snowing, but fuck it. Ah! It's like, yeah, I don't know. Crazy stuff. But yeah, they're beautiful cars. Beautiful cars. Mason James says, so Dave, if you had a chance to go back in time, what is the one thing you would change? The one thing I would change. Well, I think I would just have my parents alive. I think I would go back and I would have my mom and dad alive. That's what I would do. Because, and I think people would say that at any age. I mean, I think even if your parents died, in their 90s, I think you would love to go back and have your parents alive. But my parents died fairly young, not young, but they were 69 and 67. And that's pretty young. And, when the average is, well, I mean, it's not too far below the average, but we all hope, I think we all hope to live into our 80s at least, right? So I think when we can get to our 80s, it's kind of, that's good. 69 and 67 is pretty young, relatively speaking. And so like my parents could be alive today easily. My dad would be 78 this year. My mom would be 76, but they could be alive today. And, they died almost 10 years ago. So I think I would go back and I would have them alive. I mean, I know that eventually they're going to die. That's just life. But I do feel a sense that I was robbed from them. And they both died the same year. Like my mother died of cancer in 2011 and my dad died of a heart attack in 2011. Now my parents were not together. They've been divorced since the early 80s, but they died the same year, which is crazy. So I missed it. Like the last time I saw my dad was at my mother's funeral. So I never had an opportunity, and my girlfriend has never had the chance to meet any of my parents. So that sucks. So there was never an opportunity to get to know my father beyond, without my mom there, you know what I mean? And I was looking for, even though they weren't together, like I said, they've been divorced for, 35 years. I was looking forward to getting to know my father, without mom around, I think it may have brought us even closer together. We were already close. There was never an issue. But anyway, I was just looking forward to that. And of course, 2.5 months later, my dad died. And it's like, what the fuck? Yeah, it was an awful month. An awful year. It was an awful year in that regard. There's some good things happened that year too. But in that regard, it was awful. It was just shitty. But so yeah, I would go back and prevent them from dying. Reese Wilson says, hey Dave, if you could go back in time with the DeLorean, wouldn't you go back to 1989 and slap Dominic? I just spat. And slap Dominic Othenian Gerard. I think it's Othenian, right? Or is it Othenian? Yeah, the director of Halloween 5. Yeah, in the face and say, no, this is a fucking shit show. I would definitely go back to 1989 and I would probably have that conversation somewhere. I would be pleading for them to not do what they were about to do and how it was just crazy. Tim Line says, my dad died at 63. Yeah, that's very young too. My grandmother, my mom's mom, died at 58 of cancer. 58. So I'll be 41 this year, and I'm very aware that the older I get, I want to get lots of checkups and I mean, look, it's a part of the reason why, yes, genetics definitely can play a role, but there is a nature versus nurture in there as well. Like there's not necessarily, I guess that's the wrong way to put it. There are environmental factors too. I mean, if you're really overweight or if you smoke, and, it doesn't matter if your mom and dad live to, 96, the chances of you living to 96, if you're, 500 pounds and you smoke and drink, and it's probably not going to happen. No matter, you may have been able to live that long if you were healthier, right? So obviously there are environmental factors. I mean, my dad did smoke. My dad was a little overweight. So, I don't smoke. I never have. I don't drink. I'll have like wine or I had some scotch when I was having dinner with the blondes and because that was a special occasion, you know what I mean? That was a lot of fun. So there's like little occasions like wine at a special, whatever, but I'm not a drinker per se. So, and I run and work out, and that doesn't mean I'm going to live to 90. I mean, Jesus, there are, trained athletes that drop dead at 30. So, I mean, who knows? But certainly, you want to set yourself up for the best probability of that. It's better that I try to remain as healthy as possible than eat like a fucking, slob. So, but yeah, crazy. My parents died before 70, my grandmother at 58, but then I have a grandfather who made it to 82 and a grandmother who made it to 84 and a great-grandmother who made it to 87 and two great aunts, one of which made it to 95 and another one which is still alive at like 97 or something. And I am related to them by blood. I mean, they're my great aunts. They're my grandmother's sisters. So it's like, maybe I'll live to 98. I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? Crazy stuff. Ryan Healy says, talking about this, Dave, my sister died when she was 18 months old in 1999, and I never got a chance to meet her ever. Aw, I'm really sorry to hear that, man. Only 18 months old. Yeah, that's tough. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough. Tabitha Short says, do you want to live forever, Dave? Hey, Tabitha, how you doing? That's a really good question. This is my answer to that. I would only like to live forever if everybody I love can live forever too. Because if I live forever, but everybody I love or like or all my friends die all around me, that's gonna be a very lonely life. Do you know what I mean? And of course, not everybody can live forever because the population of the world would just become so saturated. Obviously, dying is a part of life. But yeah, I've often said that, like, I would love to, and it's not just about living forever, it's about quality of life, right? I mean, I know what you're saying. I'm just taking it to that technical side, but it's about quality of life, right? So, I mean, if I was, like, it really is about that. So if I was going to live, let's say to 130, let's say, okay, great, I'm going to live to 130, but are all my friends going to die at 70? And that's another 60 years I have to live without them or without family. You know what I mean? And then is my quality of life going to be good, or am I going to be confined to a wheelchair because I'm so old and I can't do anything, right? I mean, how many 105-year-old guys out there do you see playing tennis and jogging going, woo? Not too many. I just saw a video of this 103-year-old marathoner or whatever, and he's out there and he's going like this, like really slowly. I mean, that's, it really is about quality of life too. It's crazy. I think the only really if I couldn't be guaranteed quality of life and I couldn't be guaranteed my friends and family and those I love and appreciate being with me, then I think the only thing that would be cool about living to 130 would be to seeing what the world's like, to see how the world has changed. What is the world like, in 2100, because I will turn 100 in 2079. So fast forward another 30 years, it's 2109, 2109. What would the world be like then? Like Jesus. I think that's right? 2100? Yeah. That'd be crazy. No. Is that right? 2004, 2005? No, is that right? 2020? Yeah, that's right. That's right. 2100, 2109. Yeah, it'd be crazy. That'd be crazy. That would be the only cool thing if I wasn't guaranteed quality of life and friends. Jason K says, Dave, would you agree the flaw for immortality is not dying? Well, a flaw, yeah. Again, it depends, right? I mean, it really is. It's not about living like. Wait a minute. I'm read your question. Do you agree the flaw for immortality is not dying? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, I think you're right. I think that I think that is it. Like in a lot of cases, because like I just said, it really is about quality of life at the end of the day. Because if you live to 130, but the last 60 years of your life are confined to a bed and a breathing tube, who cares? Who cares? You know what I mean? Drummer 72 says, it would be fun to go back to Pasadena in 1978 to watch Halloween being shot. How cool would that be? That would be cool. That would definitely be cool. I'd be down for that. That'd be cool to go back to, or go back to 1963 to see if Oswald, really shot Kennedy. Just saying. Mark Johnson says, I've cheated death twice and it was hell. Coming back from it is painful. That's interesting. I almost died. In 2015, I had chicken pox. I was 15. I was turning 16 that year. I got chicken pox late in life. And I developed encephalitis from it. Long story short, I had a seizure, which I'm unaware of because obviously I don't know I'm having it. I was out. They called the ambulance. The ambulance came. I was taken to the hospital. I was in a medically induced coma for 2 days because they needed to bring the swelling in my brain down. And I almost died. I almost died at 15. So that's crazy. That's crazy. Jacob Whiteley says, co-writer gave his thoughts on Halloween Kills the other day. Yes, I did a MCRAE Live on it. It's on my channel, man. Check it out. David Ferguson says, hello, Dave. Just tuning in. I managed to get a flight from London to Stockholm via Helsinki today. I need to do a 7-hour bus journey to Oslo tomorrow. Almost back in Norway for my daughter's birth. Man, you are committed. I don't know who your girlfriend is / wife, but I'm telling you right now, man. This man, David Ferguson, look what he is out there. He is out there. He's boots on the ground, kicking ass, getting to the hospital for his daughter's birth. I think that is amazing. That is amazing. Amazing. I can't wait, man, until she's born. I can't wait. You'll have to, if you and your girlfriend are okay with it, if you are okay with it, I would love to see a photo of her. You can share it on the Patreon community section, I think. Now, you don't have to do it like as she's just born, you know what I mean? You can do it a couple days later or something, but that would be really cool. That'd be really cool. I know Tabitha did that, and it was really neat to be able to see Tabitha's son, and it would be really cool to see your daughter, but only if you and your girlfriend are okay with that, because I do understand that is putting her image, out there. So I just want to say that if you are okay with it, if she's okay with it and you're okay with it, I think it would be really cool to see it, because I think that's awesome. But yeah, really cool, man. Awesome stuff. Alexander Dirksen says, sorry to hear about your parents. Must be a sad time that year. It was very sad. My parents are old and I enjoy every moment with them before they will die. Life is bittersweet. Yeah, it is. I mean, that's one thing. The only solace I take with my parents not being around, obviously, is, well, that's out of the bag, or that's done. And what I mean by that is that as your parents, if you have a good relationship with your parents, because not everybody does, there are real shitty fucking sacks of crap parents out there that don't deserve children in their life at all. And there are people out there that have, cut their parents off, and fucking right, because they're pieces of shit. But the good parents out there, if you have a good relationship with your good parents, as they get older, it can be really scary. I mean, I know as my mother got older, and my dad was getting older, it was on my mind. I mean, I thought I would have at least another 15, 20 years with them, but it was on my mind. And the only good thing, I guess, in an ironic sort of way, is that, well, they are gone now. So I don't need to worry about that. Or I'm not like, oh my God, they're 82. Geez, it could be any time. You know what I mean? Like I'm not over, because I'm the kind of person that would be, as they get older, I would be overly worried. And certainly during this whole COVID-19 thing, you know, I said that to my girlfriend too. I was like, well, I mean, I don't have to worry about my parents. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people do. There are a lot of people that have parents in, you know, senior retirement homes and you know, and there are people that are dying and they can't get to them. They can't see them. And my parents were pretty spry. I don't think my parents would have ended up in a home because they were very alert, very with it, very independent, active. But I still would have been worried. You know what I mean? So it's just a worry that I don't have anymore, I guess, if you want to look at the bright side of it. And you know what I mean? I guess. But I would sacrifice all that to bring them back. I mean, I just, you know, I miss them a lot, obviously. Darren Sand says, thank goodness that David Ferguson lifted the mood. Yes. Let me see. Mark Johnson says, I have many battle scars, but I keep on trucking. Positive thoughts now as we all have to get through COVID-19. Hopefully a vaccination soon. And Tiger Man says, you missed both Frank's super chats. Did I really miss both Frank's super chats? Oh, they just came in now. Yeah, no, I saw them. Those, yes, I saw them. I was going to get to them. Frank Reiger says, Dave, not just now, but I had seen them. They're not too far out. Dave, what's worse going back in time? What's worse, going back in time to see when you were conceived or watching yourself getting dumped by an ex? Worse, I think, being conceived. I think that would be worse, Frank. Frank follows up with, Dave, I want to live old so my kids can clean my ass. Revenge is sweet, sir. Frank, how dare you, Frank? That's so mean. You're mean, Frank. You're mean. Drummer 72 says, stuck at home, medical cannabis time. That will lighten the mood. Yes, all this death talk. Let's get out of here. Back to the Future. For those of you that are maybe just tuning in after the fact, because we are live, of course, I do not believe it was a plot hole at all. And you can go watch the beginning of the show to find out why. I might make a social media post about this later today. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I might do that. Let's see. Jake Messman says, hey, Dave, you should do a Dean Cundy episode sometime. Maybe a top 5 or top 10 film shot by him. That's not a bad idea. I am still planning on doing Frank's idea, which is a top 5 or top 10 or 7 or however many I want to do, Loomis speeches, Loomis monologues, Loomis quotes, if you will. And I plan on doing them not actually drunk. Not actually drunk, although that would be funny. But actually doing them as drunk Loomis, so that, you know, might be kind of fun. So I still want to do that. Your top 5 Dean Cundy, that's not a bad idea. That's not bad. That's not bad, because certainly there's a plethora to choose from. I mean, he's one of the legendary director of photography, legendary DPs of cinema. You know, certainly in the you know, pop culture, in terms of pop culture films. So yeah, that would be really cool. Tab the Short says, when is your daughter due again, David? Yeah, when is she due? It's got to be like very soon. I think it's got to be very soon. Darren says, no, please do it. All right, Darren. Okay. You twisted my arm, as my English grandfather would say. Jonathan Nichols says, I don't think they should remake Back to the Future, but if they did, Tom Holland would be a great choice. Yeah, I saw that. I don't think they need to remake Back to the Future either. I think it's inevitable that they will. They can't right now. Legally, they can't, because Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale won't allow them to do it. But once they're gone, will we see a Back to the Future remake? Yeah, maybe. I don't see how you do it any better, though. It still holds up. It still holds up today. I don't see what you would do. And you couldn't do 1985 to 50. Here's what I think a remake would be. I think they would set it today, and then you would go back to 1985. Do you know what I mean? Like, you would go back to or to 1990. So, or maybe you go back 40 years. So you go back to 1980. You know, so the past becomes the 80s rather than the present being the 80s in the original film. I mean, I could see something like that, you know, so it's just a modernization of the story. That's all it is. It's just a modernization of the story. That's it. You know, but I don't think you could tell the story better, per se. You know what I mean? It would just be a modernization of it. And Tom Holland, yeah, I mean, he definitely has the Marty McFly sort of vibe to him. I could absolutely see him in that role. Yeah, I could, for sure. But Robert Downey Jr.'s Doc Brown, no, I don't want Robert Downey Jr.'s Doc Brown. I just think it's, yeah, no. Jacqueline McEwen. Hey, Jacqueline, how are you? Haven't seen you in a while. Jacqueline McEwen says, and they would have had Christopher Lloyd still play Doc without the need for old age makeup. Well, maybe. I wouldn't have done that though. I get what you're saying, but I would not have had Christopher Lloyd play Doc Brown in a reboot of Back to the Future. It just doesn't feel right to me. I think he's actually a little too old for the role now because, yeah, I think he's a little too old for the role. And I just don't think I think that should be left as that era, those films. I would recast Doc Brown too, but I get what you're saying though. Yeah, he's older now, and he might need a little bit of de-aging, actually, to play the role now. Jason Nike says, Dave, if you have time, you should read Nick and Costa's Friday the 13th, 2017. Nick and Costa's Friday the 13th, 2017 script. Some great stuff in there for the most part. It's set in 1988 and characters who are likable for the most part. Well, that's good for the most part. Is that available online in like a PDF? I just Googled that. I'll have to check it out. Thanks, Jason. Joseph Esposito says, hey, Dave, you should do a director's commentary on your fan film Halloween the Night He Came Back like you did with The Intruder. I love both films. Maybe. I'm not planning on doing that anytime soon. Maybe. I'm glad that you liked it. It was very experimental. We were trying to do a few things. It's a bit messy, but certainly there are a few things. There are some charming things in that movie that I like. If I had to do it over again, I wouldn't leave it as ambiguous as I did. I think I left it a little too ambiguous because I was planning on following it up with something, and it doesn't really hold up well as a one-off. So it looks good. It's shot well. Certain things are shot well. There's a few shots I don't like. But it was more of it needed to be smaller, I think. It needed to be shorter and smaller, and it sort of blew up to, it's only 45 minutes long, but I think it needed to be more around maybe 15 minutes, maybe. I think I was too excited to be able to shoot at some of the original locations. It's fine. Like, it totally is fine. I think The Intruder works better as a complete thing from start to finish. I think it's a better film. I think Halloween the Night He Came Back maybe looks better at certain points, but it was all my Halloween fan films are experimental. They're not, I'm not like, I would never necessarily use those as, portfolio pieces, or, I might use clips, like here's an example of something. Like there was the opening of The Night He Came Back, a writer had reached out to me wanting to use a couple of still frames from the opening as examples of how to light and expose a scene in a book she was writing about, or a section of the book she was writing anyway, about cinematography. And I was like, well, yeah, it's great, sure. So she did, and that's really cool. I posted it on social media about a year or so ago, I think, and that was really cool. So there's definitely things within that movie I would use as good examples of, but as a whole, I think I could have done a better job. But I'm glad that you like it. I'm glad that you like it because it was experimental. I mean, we were just flying off the seat of our pants and we were trying to do different things, and you know what I mean? It's Me, Billy is not like that, though. It's Me, Billy is, very different. Very, very different. Very prepared. And very professional. Jason K says, at Nick, also the Phantom, he's talking. Wait, we're back. Okay, we're back. I froze there for a moment and I thought something was going to happen, but I thought YouTube was going to kick me off, but it didn't kick me off. Oh, by the way, here's what I sometimes get. I want you guys to see this. This is what I sometimes get. It's so annoying. This is, where is it here? Wait a minute, where'd it go? It's around here somewhere. Oh, unless maybe that's, wait a minute. Where'd it go? Maybe I got rid of it? Did I get rid of it? Oh, it isn't there. Maybe I did. No, it's there. Oh, hang on. It's probably because it's not a, it's a PNG. That's strange. Why? I wonder why it's not showing up. Anyway, I just was trying to show you when sometimes things crap out on me, what I actually see. And for some reason, when I go to add it, it's not. Oh, no, there it is. Haha. There it is. So, when things will crap out on me and things will start? YouTube did it again to me yesterday when I was just surfing YouTube. This is what I see. And it's annoying and scares the crap out of me when I'm live. This is what I see. I see this. That's what I see. This page isn't available. Sorry about that. Try searching for something else. It'll be similar to that. And I'm like, what? And then I notice that my screen's gone blank and I'm like, YouTube. And I'm refreshing and refreshing and refreshing. It's like a 404 error or something. And then I'll see this and it's like, what? And then all of a sudden I'll be back and I'll come back. And but it's too late. The stream's been knocked off and the whole fucking thing. And it's like, what are you doing, YouTube? Stop it. Anyway, I'm here. Mark Johnson says, excellent dare. Oh, I'm missing the conversation. Matthew Hatsamalius, I think. Dave, if any fourth film should happen, it should have Marty with Parkinson's, just like real life Jay Fox. He travels back to his childhood to somehow magically cure himself. Just a fun idea. I think that would be perceived as, like, I'm not offended by it at all. I mean, I get what you're saying. I think generally that would be perceived as a little insensitive to some people because you're making light, of, not making light, like, I totally get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But it would change the to do that, you would have to do it as a serious drama. You know what I mean? Because you wouldn't want to make light of Parkinson's and the struggle to find a cure for it. So I could see that being an issue. In terms of, because Back to the Future it's a fun, hokey film. You know what I mean? So I don't think you could tackle a serious subject matter like that. But I don't think they're going to do a Back to the Future 4. I don't think they will. I really don't. Juron the man. Is that how you pronounce that? Juron? Let me know. Hey, Dave, will you and Tony ever do a live to Rear Window? You mean, will we watch Rear Window live? Oh, yeah, we're going to. Or do a stream discussing legendary filmmakers such as Kubrick, Spielberg, etc.? Yep, definitely. Absolutely. Not sure when, but we definitely will. Do it, you son of a bitch. At Dave McCrae, Family Guy has a scene in an episode on the Back to the Future plot hole. Do they? I must have seen that then. I'll have to check it out. I don't believe it's a plot hole. And I might, you know what? I've done a McCrae Live here. I might do a standalone video on it. I just might. I'm not sure yet. We'll see how I feel. David Ferguson says, trend setting. Robert Thidoff says, Dave, what would you have done to make the Back to the Future sequels better? I wouldn't have done much in Back to the Future 2 other than, because I think that's a pretty tight film. I do. I wouldn't have stiffed Crispin Glover the way I did, or the way they did. I would have tried to work around that, get him in the movie. Back to the Future 3, I don't know. I don't know what I would have done with Back to the Future 3. I don't know if I would have gone, yeah. I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure. I got to watch, I would have to watch them all in succession again. Like I'd have to I know that I don't like Back to the Future 3 as much as I do the first two. And I think it's primarily because it's connected. The first two are very connected. They're connected to each other. It's 1985, 1955. That is Back to the Future 2. Yes, it's 2015, but they don't spend a lot of time in 2015. They spend some time there, enough time to go, hey, this is what the future might be like. But they don't spend a lot of time there. So it really is, the crux of Back to the Future 2 is really changing the events in 1955 again to have 1985 back to the way it used to be. That really is, the crux of it. And then, of course, you have a 2015, right? But you can't have Back to the Future 2 without the future of 2015, because that's where you get the almanac. So it plays an integral part. It plays a role. It's a tight movie. It is. It's a tight movie. I think Back to the Future on its own is good, because I think part 2 is a little bit more of the same, but just more, if you know what I mean. I think that's why maybe it's not as revered as part 1. Because they're not reinventing the wheel necessarily. They're just adding to it, which I think is also why it works. It's familiar, and it's like, oh, that's so cool. I see what you did there. Like, you're kind of just adding some things to it. You're seeing like extensions of, and it's kind of cool. 3, they go to a different world altogether, back to 1885, and you live in 1885. You live in that. The vast majority of the movie is 1885. So it's got a very different feel to it. It feels like a different movie. And so I don't know. I don't think I would touch part 2 other than the Crispin Glover fiasco. And part 3, though, I think is where I would maybe want to meddle a bit, but I don't know what that would be. I'm not sure. Because it's not an awful movie. It's not awful. But I don't know what that would be yet. Let me see. H.E. Pennypacker says, it's kind of a plot hole. If they acknowledged it, then it would have been okay. But who knows? It's kind of like the Buzz Lightyear plot hole. But it's not a plot hole, though. Because, a plot hole, again, my reason for saying that the Back to the Future plot hole is not a plot hole is because I don't believe that there is evidence to suggest that they would believe that Marty is Calvin. I think there's plenty of circumstantial evidence and even a high probability to suggest that they might think that he looks like Calvin. Yeah, for sure. But in order for it to be but so what? That doesn't mean it's so they think that their son kind of resembles the kid from 1955. Okay. They would have to believe it is the kid from 1955 for it to be, because then that brings up, wait a minute, what? And there's no way they're going to think that, because the Back to the Future universe isn't designed that way. Time travel isn't possible in the universe, generally speaking, right? It's a very hush, hush, I just invented a time machine. You know what I mean? So the parents aren't going to actually think it's Calvin, and they saw him born. They saw the birth. They raised him. They raised him when he was 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. At the most, at best, they would think, oh, that's funny. He looks like Calvin. You know what I mean? And, or what she thought was, and then of course, he tells her to call me Marty. They probably name him Marty in honor of their son. And or in honor of that guy. Oh, that's interesting. He grew up looking like Marty. That's kind of, or there's a resemblance, but it's so long ago. And because there's no Facebook or social media, or all they have is in here. So they might not even realize how much he looks like Calvin, Marty, right? They may not even realize that. They may be thinking to themselves, wow, he kind of looks like him a little bit. But if they actually had a photo, they might be like, oh my God, it's uncanny. They may not even realize how uncanny it is. But in order for it to be an actual plot hole, there would have to be significant, at the very least, a high probability that the parents would believe it is that Marty. And the only way they would believe that is if they were privy to the information of time travel being possible. That's how I see it. I think everything I've said here would make a good standalone video, and I might do that. I might do that just to have it up on my channel. I like that kind of stuff. Darren Sand says, yeah, that train looks pretty ropey. Now, what train no flying train ending? Oh, the train. Yeah, the train. I forgot the train takes off, and I forgot that. I remember the train hitting the car and destroying the DeLorean, but I forgot about that. I totally forgot about that. That's a good point. That's a really good point. Let me just go back and see if I've missed any super chats. I don't think I did. Eddie Green. Oh, Eddie Green's 101. Oh, is that a super chat I missed? Let me go back. I don't think I did. Oh, Super Chat comes in from Big G, says, hope this MCRAE Live doesn't ruin this film for me. Oh, wait. No, that's the other one. That's the other one. Oh, geez, I was like, that's the other one. I was like, what's going on? Eddie Greens 101 says, ever go to, yes, okay, so I did. Eddie Greens 101 says, and thank you, buddy, really appreciate it. Ever go to Back to the Future, the ride at Universal Studios? I did. I loved that ride. Loved that ride. E.T., Back to the Future, Earthquake, Confrontation, Jaws. Oh yeah, my man. Loved that ride, 100%. Reese Wilson says, sends a super chat. Thank you, buddy. Says, hey, Dave, I rather like part 3, but I would have gone for broke with a third film and time traveled all over the place and really had fun with it. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. That would have upped the budget majorly, but that's interesting. That's interesting. But I'm glad I like part 3 too. I don't not like part 3. I just think it has a very different feel than the first 2 films. The first 2 films feel very connected to each other, like almost a one movie, 2 separate parts kind of thing. And then there's that third film where it's it's very separate. You know what I mean? I think that's sort of what happens for a lot of people. All right, well, what do we got here? What's the time? Let's take it another 4 minutes. We'll take it to an hour and 40 minutes. So another 4 minutes here. Alexander Dirksen says, Dave, did you watch Frighteners from Peter Jackson with Michael J. Fox? Very underrated. Love it. I have. I haven't seen that in years, but I have seen that movie and I enjoyed it. I liked it. Yep. Mark Johnson says, it could have been the Marky Mark executive exclusive underwear. Now that would be a mind melt. Yes. 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 That would be. Mark Johnson says, Crispin Glover is an outstanding serious actor. Yes, he can play dark humor. They didn't treat him right after being in... treat him right not being in part 2. They screwed him over and twisted the situation, making Crispin seem crazy. Yeah, there's several interviews with Crispin Glover online that you can check out where he dives into the details of that and sort of what happened there. And yeah, it's an unfortunate. It's unfortunate, definitely unfortunate. Darren Sand says, it's odd that Back to the Future 2 and 3 feel so different, yet they were filmed back to back without a break in production. That's true. Yeah, they were, because when did the part 2 come out? Was it November 89? Was it November 89 and then the third one was April 90? Was that what it was, Darren? It was something, it was only like 5 or 6 months apart from each other. It was something like that. November 89 and June 90. Okay, June 90. Okay, all right. I believe. Okay, cool. Yeah, June seems more like a date for that. November 89, June 90. Yeah, they did shoot them back to back, which was interesting. Joseph Esposito says, hey, Dave, with the talk of Halloween Kills becoming badder and meaner, do you think it could become too much like the Rob Zombie films? Not Rob Zombie, but I do think there is a risk for it becoming the Dr. Sartain kill becoming like the kills we see. You know what I mean? And I don't think that should not be the status quo. That should not be sort of just what we expect, you know? But I do think there is a risk of that when you want to up the ante and have it a little more like, whoa, fuck, you know, intense kills. Yeah. Yeah. You know, you run the risk of turning Michael into a little bit of a Jason. Not full-on Jason, but there's that risk. I talked about it, I think, on last Friday's episode of MCRAE Live, or maybe it was Tuesday's episode. I can't remember. I talked about it recently. I agree. There is always that risk. Tabitha Short says, bye, Dave. Hope you have a great rest of your day. You too, Tabitha. Stay safe out there. Stay safe. Stay safe. Jim Thake says, so did Crispin Glover get worked out of the second film? Yeah, he did. Where the issue was that they used his likeness, really. It's not that, I mean, listen, if Crispin Glover was not in the movie and they didn't even have maybe his likeness in the movie, or it's really about what pissed him off was, you know, it's really complicated. Well, it's not that complicated, but it's a lot to get into here. But let's just say that he was very upset that they used his likeness in the movie. And it was a very, you know, through makeup and prosthetics, and at a time, at that time you couldn't do that. You still can't do that without being paid for it, you know. And so it was just Google YouTube Crispin Glover Back to the Future interview. You'll see it. You'll see it pop up. But yes, he was not in part 2. But there are a lot of people, because they did such a good job on his likeness, there are a lot of people that think he was in part 2. And that's one of the things that pisses him off, because he's like, no, I wasn't in part 2. And I don't even think he was compensated for it. I think he eventually was, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't think he was initially, I don't think, which was part of the big fucking, like, what the fuck? I think anyway. It was something like that, man. Something like that. Okay, so that's going to do it for me here on episode 47 of MCRAE Live. Thank you for tuning in. Let me just say that I do not believe it is a plot hole. I understand why people tend to think that, but I do not believe that, because I think it is probable that they would have noticed that their son resembles the kid from years ago, but there is no evidence to suggest that they would think it is the kid from years ago. And for the reasons that I stated, and maybe I'll do a little standalone video on this channel just talking about that. I don't know. We'll see. It is here on MCRAE Live, but we'll see. We'll see how I feel. Hey, I want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all the super chats, folks. You really are amazing. Really appreciate you supporting the channel like that. Thanks to my moderators, of course, Tabitha and Darren and Jason and Frank. Thank you for keeping the chat room flowing like you always do. I really appreciate it. I will be back. Hey, and don't forget to tune in onto Drum Dum's channel tonight. I think it's tonight, right? Yeah, tonight. Is it tonight? Pretty sure it's tonight. It's not next week, is it? No, it's tonight. It's tonight. Yeah. I better double check. Drum Dum's channel, I think it's 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can go to his channel and check it out. For Hallowstream Kills 2, myself and Jimmy Champagne and Barry from Wolfman's Got Nards, and Lee, of course, and Mike and Jay from We Watched a Movie, we'll be talking about... we'll be talking Halloween. So make sure to tune into that tonight. And then, of course, tomorrow night for my level 3 and 2 patrons, tomorrow night is Saturday movie night, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Still trying to figure out which movie we're going to be watching. It looks like we're going to be watching that Terror Train, not Terror Train, but the trip on the train, not Terror Train with Jamie Lee Curtis, another one. It looks like we'll be watching that. I think people just want to watch that one. And I'm having trouble finding it online. So I know Shudder has it, and Shudder, I think you can get a free trial. So if we have to watch that movie and you don't have Shudder, I think you can get a free trial. And then if you don't want to keep Shudder, you can cancel it before your free trial is up. So I think the movie is on there. That's where I'm going to probably have to access it as well. But I'll make a post about it either later today or tomorrow and letting you guys know which movie we are officially watching. But that's what it looks like we'll be watching. And then Two Dudes and Some Bullshit is not Monday night. Okay, Two Dudes and Some Bullshit will be pushed to Wednesday night. I will make a announcement on that. It'll be Monday, it's always Monday, but this Monday night I have a production meeting for Dylan's new Nightmare. So I'll be hooking up with Cecil and Vince and Miko and everybody, going over the script. So that's happening Monday night. So Two Dudes for this week anyway will be pushed to Wednesday night at 7 p.m. But I'll make all these announcements via social media so you guys know. So great chat today, guys. Really appreciated you tuning in. Had a lot of fun, and have a great rest of your weekend if I don't speak to you before I speak to you. And also, stay safe. Stay safe. Take care of yourself and each other. That'll do it for me. If you want to follow me on Facebook, all the links are down below. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you guys soon. Alrighty. Cheers.